Hey, hey. Hello. How are we doing?
Hello.
It's like the good old days.
Like the good old days.
Me, a hot co host, a brush and some paint, and some nerds in chat. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Monday. How we doing? Look at me, I got full screen. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to act.
It's been a long time.
I don't know how to act. I don't know what's going on here.
Start by picking up your paintbrush.
Oh, I gotta do that thing?
Yeah.
Oh my god. Alright.
Or you just go sit in the chairs today.
Sit in the chairs.
Yeah.
I don't think that's. I want to paint. I got to take a minute to catch up with my brain, figure out what I was doing. I think I was working on the warm grays.
There's a bigger, fancier board over here that I don't know what to do with.
It's bigger and fancier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what to do with the old one.
Yeah.
It was smaller and less fancy. So this is a lot of dials and knobs.
A lot of dials and knobs.
Yeah.
It should be set.
Okay.
You may have to turn me down. So, like that little slider on the first channel,
Channel number 1.
channel number 1,
Yeah.
pull it down just a hair.
Okay.
How about now? How about now? Now. That's pretty good.
Okay.
And yours may need to go up, and yours is channel 5.
I'm 5.
Yeah.
Is mine okay? Oh, yeah, I need to go up a little, huh?
You can see.
Hello? Is that good? Can you hear me?
Yeah, you need to make sure when you're talking, you're like halfway through the yellow.
Yeah.
The new Mackie mixer is connected. On your way home from New Hampshire,
Not gonna make it. What does that mean?
Paint Liquor says, I'm in the office this week. Prepare for extra lurk. Oh, no work from
Aw.
home. Jake the Baron, what's happening? You're painting tiny frog people today, T. Schmidt? Father and son homestead. What's going on? Spoodley, you had just finished up a Grey Knight Terminator. Now you're lurking. We're doing good, Jake. Good to see you.
Father and son homestead game. Was it a giveaway from us? Or from someone else? And are you talking about Pro Acryl paints, I assume?
You've only got about 6 hours on your clock, and it's about an 8-hour drive. Oh, you mean work time?
Oh.
You're not going to make it home. They only let you drive 8 hours.
Yeah.
Right. Lion Creative, what's happening? Hello. How are ya? How we doing, gang? Still have a very angry. What is a rhinoceros? Is it a? Wonder what genus and species rhino is.
Do you want me to look that up?
Yeah.
I'll Google that for
You
you.
should Google
I'll
that.
Google that. That's what I'm here for.
We got to get you a second computer
To answer the important questions.
to answer the important questions with. They let you drive 11, Tim? Oh, so it's longer than 11 to get home. Nice, father and son. But you can be on duty for 14. Only driving for 11, though. Jake, awesome. Thank you. Hope everybody's having a great beginning of the week. We are back. It is that time. I am gonna use just bright warm gray, I think. Use some bright warm gray. I've been doing dark warm gray. Just gonna use bright warm gray. Simple triads in action here. Why not? I do what I want.
It's a mammal. It is any of 5 or 6 species of giant horn-bearing herbivores.
Well, huzzah, huzzah. I'll just throw back my legs and pollute my breeches with delight.
Who's that? Lion Creative.
Thank you for that
Thank
Twitch
you.
Prime.
Thank you. I'm not seeing all the alerts and stuff.
No, the alert screen is dead.
Oh.
Streamlabs, OBS, having a rough time. I would assume that Twitch probably updated their API.
Started today in Augusta, Maine. Hotter today, Vegas or Phoenix? Probably Vegas. I mean, it's not very hot here. It's only 90. It's not even 100 degrees. Very overcast today.
It's annoyingly humid.
Yeah, that's our problem right now is human.
Welcome to Phoenix. We just bitch
Yeah.
no matter what the weather's doing.
I don't because I know where I live. So that's not true. I will, like, if I get in my car, I'll be like, oh, it's so hot. But I'm not, like, actively complaining
Yeah.
to others because we're all in the same boat.
You're not getting out of it either.
No.
I mean, you can. You can drive a certain amount of hours in any direction.
But the problem right now is the humidity, and that is, you know, we're so, like, unaccustomed to that it's hard not to complain about that. Instant sweat.
You heard you liked a little sweat with your heat.
Dr. Rhino just got the Signature Series 3 and 4. Excited to test them.
Awesome. Test them?
Maverick Mini says 108 in the Pacific Northwest. Yeah, that's crazy.
What is this test the paints thing? I test the paints. You just have fun with them. You got the easy job. You ain't got to test nothing.
Lion Creative, was it today? Because Baby J is not here today. And he was only here Friday for the stream. Oh yeah, Friday. So he wasn't here Friday.
Taste test. You bastages. No. Bastages, all of you. Dr. Rhino says, look at me. I am the QA now. Glad your stream went good, though. Don't know if y'all saw this or not, but as you know, I was born without your left hand. I remember you talking about that. So when the paints come in, I would like to give y'all a shout out during the stream. Anything else that would help benefit y'all? Dude, just use the paints.
Yeah.
We're simple folk around here. You ain't got to do nothing. Use the paints. Enjoy the hobby. We're hobbyists. We want to see people having fun hobbying. If you're doing it with our stuff, all the better.
Maverick Minis made a comment earlier. It says, I know the video is old, but I just watched your interview on Rising Ape about synthetic brushes and got a few from you guys. I'm eager to see if you can convert me. All we use.
You know, don't feel bad either way, right? Tools are tools, and you're going to find the one that works for you. The brush conversation will never change until there just aren't choices, right?
He is currently using a synthetic.
Yeah, I only paint with synthetics. Generally, like 99% of the time, you'll see me painting with synthetics.
What size is that? 2, 4?
This is a 2.
2.
Pro synthetic.
Lumberjack Tim said, I just watched my paints get delivered on Ring. That's awesome. Never
thought about being able to, like, see your deliveries happen.
Well, but I would be frustrated if you also then see people come up and take it.
Yeah.
Like, I get everything delivered here. Nothing gets delivered to the house.
Never. The heck with that.
All these people, like in our neighborhood Facebook group, there was one day where like 3 different people posted. So somebody clearly hit the neighborhood and was stealing packages. And I don't get it. I'm like, you can have stuff delivered anywhere you want. Have it delivered to your work.
A lot of them work from home.
And then even more reason why you should know.
Yeah, that's the insult to injury part.
Yeah.
I was pooping.
Right.
My packages got stolen.
Can't even poop anymore. Xenophonetic said, curious, the gloss varnish. Did you do any durability testing? My primary reason for using gloss is a protective layer. I always hit it with ultramatte after.
So, I mean, yeah, it's a top coat, so you can use it that way. Realize that no acrylic varnish is going to be ultra durable. If you're looking for durability, then while gloss is more durable than matte in general, no acrylic is very durable. It's just another layer of paint. It has a heavier poly in it. It is intended as a top coat, so you can definitely use it that way. But it's never going to be as strong as a general like solvent-based lacquer, things like that. So just be aware.
T. Schmid, why not? McDonald's also has a door and an inside lobby where an Amazon driver or a postal carrier or USPS carrier could walk in and drop the package off. Anybody can get stuff delivered at their work.
Well, they may not let you. Right.
That would be silly.
I ain't trying to know what kind of weird crap employees buy.
You don't have to open the box. We've had people get their stuff delivered here. And then Maverick Minis, going back to the synthetic brushes, said, I wouldn't say I feel bad, but I like being fully aware of my options. If I have other options that I feel are more ethical, why not?
Yeah, definitely.
And then Omicron Samurai said, how can you fix the curl on a synthetic brush? You can't really fix it. You can avoid it, prolong it, but it is part, well, if you look at Jason's brush, he's been using that brush for a long time. And there's no, is there any curl on it?
No, not really.
No. So, but you can see also, if you watch when he's painting, you'll see that the brush really doesn't move. So the tip curl comes when you are, well, the brush scoop is part of prolonging it, but that's not going to get rid of it once it's already curled. So the brush tip is not moving at all. He's got such a light touch with the paintbrush on the model that it's not creating the what would you call it? Like the tension, I guess, onto the
yeah, the pressure at the tip. So, and
pressure.
Also you'll notice I rotate. It's tough to
Yes.
tell, right? Because if the lettering's not in frame, you can't tell. But as you start to paint more, there's like this unspoken thing that we talk about so rarely that happens as I paint, or as a painter paints, which is that you watch the tip of the brush and you watch how it's hitting the surface of the model so that you can make sure you've got the right shape hitting for the line thickness you want to do and things like that. I just have water on it right now. But I've got a good point on this brush right now, right, all the way around, but because I just cleaned it. But the way that I paint, I typically come over here and, as you can see, I take off a bunch of the paint off of the tip and I'll get it to where it's more of a chisel shape. So now you can't necessarily tell, but it's flat this way. See, I have a really knife's edge this way and more flat and broad this way. Every round brush will do this, sable or synthetic. And so I typically will start like this so that I've got a nice sharp edge to go in when I'm doing detail lining like I'm doing here. Actually, I flatten it out so that I can use the flat side, right, to pull this edge along here. And then I'll rotate it around and pull you know, the edge again. But as you're painting and applying pressure, you're flattening the brush and making this chisel shape to where it'll be sharp point one way, flat the other way. And as you do that, you just, when you don't need the wide line, you just rotate it this way and you get the thin line. And so then I'll paint this way with the thin line. And as I do that, regardless of how heavy, if my hand is very heavy, meaning that my brush stroke bends the brush a lot, then it'll wind up flattening that out this way, and I start reversing the chisel 90 degrees. Now I turn it this way and I get the sharp edge. So I just turn my brush 90 degrees all the time. And so I'm doing that to keep the tip how sharp or flat that I need it. Sometimes you want a flat surface so that you can pull edges, because you're not painting with the tip, you're painting with the side of the tip down here, right? And so the broader the brush gets, the more paint you can deliver in one stroke, right? So when I'm doing edge highlighting, I'm never painting the edge highlight with a tip unless it's like a recessed edge or a detail, right? And so I'm painting with the side of the brush, so I want it wide and flat. And then I rotate it 90 degrees to the narrow section and do my texture lines, you know, like these lines, scratches, and things like that I'm painting on here. And then I'll rotate it back around. But I'm constantly rotating the brush about 90 degrees so that I'm always getting the type of tip that I need to do the work. It allows one size brush to do a lot more work for you to paint that way. And it also avoids tip curl for a long time. Because you are, you know, what happens subconsciously is that a lot of us grip the brush in a particular way. Some people like staring at the lettering. Some people don't want to see the lettering at all. But you'll hold the brush and you won't ever rotate it. And so even when you go clean the brush in the cup, you know, and then come back over, it's still held the same way. And if you paint the same direction for an entire session with the same brush, the brush starts to hook that direction. And with a synthetic brush, because it's just various nylons and polyurethanes, plastics, right? So it starts to get a memory and it'll curl and you'll wind up with that little hook at the end. The hook is not a big deal. So the first thing that you got to understand is that's not a bad brush. You can still paint with and against the hook, right? So if the hook is you know, if you're zoomed in and it kind of hooks like this at the very tip, you can use that tip to get a very fine line still, right? Or you can paint like this, right, and get a wider line and a smoother stroke along an edge. So the tip is not a problem. I've painted with, I mean, I've got brushes over here that I've painted with forever. Just grab one. I paint with a number 2 and a number 4 more than anything, right? So here's a number 2, and what happens with my style of painting is that if we zoom in, let's get punch in on the super zoom. Right, you can see I've got a stray hair here on the side. I'll show you how to cut. Well, let's cut that off real quick. If you've got, you'll notice that some hairs will tend to break over time, so that one's not long enough. Right, that hair's not long enough to be part of the point anymore. So we'll just kind of grab it, pull it all the way down out of the bundle to the ferrule, and then clip it off down there. Then all of those should go back in. That one may get cantankerous, but yeah, they go back in. And you know, but this brush, rather than having a pronounced hook to it, just has a really beat up tip. You know, I did pulling that one hair out, separated that one from the bundle too, so I'm gonna clip that off. Right. So now I can still get a fairly sharp edge with this, but it's going to be blunt on one side all the time. I won't be able to get this brush probably to a complete nice sharp point all the way around. That's still pretty close, but that tip is a little blunt, right? It's also a very dirty brush. Yeah. But, you know, generally when painting with this number 2, since I can't get as fine of a point, I'm constantly doing it in that chisel shape like that. So it's a little broader across, and then I get my knife's edge this way. But you can see this is an old brush, and it still doesn't have much deflection at the tip, not much curl. I can use this for a long time. Now, compared to a newer brush, if I put those side by side, you'll see the difference. You'll see that the tip on the left is still all bundled nicely. The tip on the right, even when I get it to be pretty sharp, is still, notice how I say it's blunt?
But
see the difference?
Look how dirty it is.
Huh?
Look how dirty it is, though. That could be
well, yeah, it's tons of dirt, but it's also because the tip of the brush gets a lot of damage from the way I paint. I stipple a whole lot, I do a lot of texturing. I paint fairly quickly, even though I don't have a heavy hand, meaning I'm not ramming the brush into the model, which is not a problem. You just have to understand that that's going to change the way your paint strokes look. I have a fairly light hand, but I'm very quick, so I do a lot of this kind of stuff. You know, I do a lot of quick feathering, so I come in here and I'm just, you know, doing lots of fast hits on the model. And every time you're hitting the tip of the brush against the model on that hard surface, you're starting to break the tips. Like, it's like having split ends in your hair. Natural brushes do it, synthetic brushes do it, every brush does, right? So that's the only difference between these two tips right now, right? But both paintbrushes can do it. This one can't pull as tight of a line if you just take it and willy-nilly use it. But if you take the time to blunt it out, right, just pull it into that chisel shape like I talked about, then when I turn it this way, I get a very, very sharp tip on that brush still. Right? But it's going to cause it to be broad on this side. So then when I paint here, it starts to flatten out after a few brush strokes and get that chisel turned 90 degrees. So then I just rotate the brush around again, and there's my tip again. Right? So just get used to painting that way. It's something that I've taught for years and years and years, right? Just get used to chiseling your brush. I don't have a name for it. There's no need. It's just when you use the bristles, they start to spread and flatten out. But what that does is utilize that, because when you turn it 90 degrees, you get that really sharp angle again that you can pull that nice line and texture with, and then just watch, because after a few strokes, it flattens that out and then rotate it again. And by rotating, you save your brush. And so what will happen is that your brush will start to blunt at the tip because you've gotten so much use out of it. You never have to worry about tip curl. That's why I say, like in that interview, there's no reason to not, so here's the difference. And someone at Gen Con said that this was the best explanation they'd ever heard, because, and I've said it on stream a million times, the difference between sable and synthetic is a matter of brush pressure and how you, what I call the weight of hand, right? So my weight of hand is very light. When I'm in here, you know, I size up the model and I get in here and I do very light brush strokes, and you don't see the brush flex very often because I'll do 2 or 3 swipes on an area to get the right amount of paint. I'm not trying to go in and deliver one big heavy line at once. That's not how we paint on miniatures, right? We're building up color and volume. So I'm usually 3, 4, 5, 6 strokes onto an area. Again, just water right now because I don't have the right color going for these highlights. But, you know, you can imagine. So a very light stroke, come in here, hit this area 4 or 5 times to bring that up the level I need to. Because I have a light brush stroke, the stiffness of a synthetic never works against me. Right? I'm never pushing down so hard that the brush is flexing like this. Let me get out of super zoom here. Right? So I'm never pushing to where I've got the brush bent at, like, you know, 45 degrees or anything like that. Unless I'm doing heavy base coats, right? Dry brushing, obviously. Right? But when I'm normally painting, like Jen was saying, you really don't see the brush move too much. Right? Now, if you paint with a heavier hand, and you can just watch, just take mental notes as you're painting your next miniature and watch and see when you're going in and doing your details, are you kind of flexing the brush like that to pull across? If you are, that's fine, but maybe sable is better for you because sable has a little more flex to it than the synthetics, and that's just a matter of material. And what happens is that if it's a little bit softer, like sable as a natural hair can be, right, then it will not spread your fine point as you apply more pressure. You'll keep a tight, sharp point on the brush so that you can apply more pressure and still get a tight line, right? Now realize that by putting more pressure on, you're instantly thickening your line anyway because you're touching the model with more of the length of the brush and it has a taper to it. But for miniature paint, a lot of people ask us why our brushes aren't like some other artist brushes. We don't have a big flare or flame shape to our brushes, whether synthetic or sable. And the reason for that, a lot of people call that the belly of the brush. Since we don't need a tremendous amount of paint to work in the miniature world, you're not trying to load your brush with a tremendous amount of paint because you're not painting a canvas that's taking a lot of paint away from the brush over a long amount of brush strokes. So it doesn't matter about whether the size of the belly is big or small. You're going to get enough paint in just the first 1/8 inch of most of your brushes. Okay. But what it does is it means that you can apply more pressure and not increase your line weight until you get to where you're really bending it like this. Then, of course, you can see that the thickness of the brush down by the ferrule is a lot more than the point, so your whole line will be as thick as that part that's touching the model. But sables will flex more and keep a tight point. Synthetics, because they're a little stiffer, have more snap. The more you bend them, the quicker it can splay that tip and get you a broader line. So some people don't like synthetics because they can't do fine detail, is the way they'll talk about it. And the reality is they're pushing harder on their brush, which, again, it's not a bad thing. It just means, yes, you would probably prefer a softer brush. If you don't want to spend for sables and natural hair brushes, then lighten your hand, right? Start practicing being gentler with your brush stroke. You can still deliver the same amount of paint. It may take you 2 strokes instead of 1, but you can do it. So it's all just preference.
And regular cleaning definitely helps. But Jason doesn't clean his brushes very often. If you see him cleaning a brush on stream, that's probably the only time that he has cleaned that brush. So his is obviously due in part to the fact that he doesn't have a very heavy paint stroke. But if you do, and you feel like you can't lighten it up, just clean your brush after every painting session. Like when you're done, clean it really well, use the brush scoop to reshape it, because the brush scoop will cause it to stiffen up again and help so that it doesn't remember the curl, it remembers the point.
Yep. And Maverick brings up a good point. Clarify that not all synthetics are created equally. Yeah, synthetic is a broad term for much that can be used for much different style of brushes. I would never suggest buying a brush that is made out of nylon. So any of the brushes you see that are all white, I would not spend your money on them, unless you're just getting like 50 for $5. Nylon, while being a very strong, high tensile strength poly plastic, it bends and doesn't flex and is not really made for what we're doing as fine detail painters. You're going to want something that's more of a blended synthetic, something that maybe has 30% natural hair, 70% synthetic. The statement black or golden Taclon, the Taclons are very good. They have some nylon content for stiffness, but they have other polys in there that are much, much better, more flexible, hold their shape better, don't have the same memory that nylon does. So some things to just be aware of, right?
And Jake the Baron, yes, you can leave a little bit in there after you clean it. There are some videos. There's a detailed brush care video on our YouTube. I did a very quick, like TikTok, Instagram reel kind of thing, maybe like a year ago. So if you follow us on TikTok, it'll be easier to find because we don't have a lot of videos there. Instagram, you can just scroll back. It's I don't know how long ago it was, but it's been a while. But yes, there are videos out there that show how to use the brush scoop. If I can find how long. Throughout the Great said I like to lick the tub of goop to get it moist enough for my brushes. That's good.
Like to what? Kind of heresy
it's like
am I
getting your
hearing
mouth
here?
washed out with soap for having a dirty mouth. Here it is. All right, so it was from, almost a year, August 25th, 2022. There's a video on our Instagram that shows just a super quick, you can't see that, but super quick cleaning.
Yeah, we need to do another. We've been saying it for years. We need to redo the old brush cleaning one.
Goobertown Hobbies said I like this brush talk. Hello.
Hey, Brent.
We like brush talk too.
What's going on, man? Wonderful Goobs is in chat.
Don't eat the goop. Nothing we make is edible. That was one of our original like catchphrases is Monument Hobbies. Nothing we make is edible. Oh, and look at that. Gabe, is that the brush cleaning, I assume? Hipster Gumby. You can trust that link.
Aaron El Noveno Reno, our Mexico distributor. I always use cleaning video to show how soap works. Good. That's awesome.
You. Non-toxic does not equal edible.
Yes, non-toxic does not equal edible. Paint Liquor says, I can't hear you over the sound of me slurping down the new Sig Series paints. Horrible humans. Don't trust anybody in chat. Oh, wait. Oh, wait. Especially not yourselves. Not with that attitude, it doesn't. Everything's edible if you try hard enough.
Well, everything's edible once, right?
Everything's edible once. This is the true words have never been spoken. So you can't say not edible. You can say it ill-advised to consume said materials.
Not recommended for human consumption, human ingestion.
And I hope everybody had a great weekend. Jen and I did some drywall work.
Did some home repairs.
Some home repair. At the old house.
A whole brick would be pretty I mean, there's a lot of things that seem like they would be non-edible, but we're not going to put anything past anyone. Pumpkin spice is gross. Never. Xenophonetic, who are you asking? Because none of us do. No one here licks their brush.
Quit it.
Apple is the superior fall flavor, but we are not adding apple flavor to our paint either.
It has to be cinnamon apple. Like apple cider with those cinnamon sticks in it. Although, if you suck on those cinnamon sticks, I feel like you can...
You're not supposed to do that.
You get like a broader view of the universe.
You're not supposed to eat the cinnamon straight up.
The spice is real.
That was a like a stupid people challenge.
A stupid people challenge.
Was the cinnamon challenge, where they would eat like a whole spoonful of cinnamon.
As a kid, I would get those sticks and you dip them in the apple cider and then you lick them.
Oh.
And it would be good for the first lick, and then all of a sudden it was like, what the hell did I put in my drink?
Right. Because you're not supposed to eat it plain.
Because it turns out cinnamon sticks are ferocious.
A football scented paint? No. You can hold a football or put a football on your desk while you paint if you need that smell.
All of our paints are flavored with locker socks.
With what?
Locker socks.
Yeah. We had to upgrade from the donkey butt because people were still eating it.
Turns out
now
some people...
Old gym bag.
Yeah. Anybody here ever played hockey? If so, you'll know what I mean when I say it's flavored with hockey glove flavoring.
Well, huzzah, huzzah! I'll just throw back my legs and pollute my britches with delight.
Route the Great, thank you.
Route.
4 months.
Hero mode activated. What's going on?
A spoonful of ground ginger once would not recommend. Yeah, no, that doesn't sound good either. Some folks are into locker socks. Well, Spoodley, that's between you and...
And you.
And you.
There should not be anybody else other than your counselor involved in that conversation. Your life coach, perhaps.
Paint mixed with fart spray.
Fart spray?
We're not adding any flavors to anything because you're not supposed to eat any of the stuff that we make. End of discussion. Oof. Maverick Mini said, I know a friend who played hockey, broke his finger, shoved it back into the bacteria-infested glove, and lost a finger.
What? Bacteria. That's just flavoring.
Wad said that's between you and the OnlyFans you bought them off of. The locker socks.
Oh my god. Good to go along with the bathwater. Bottled bathwater.
Oh. He said, I don't like feet. I was just stating that some people do.
Yeah, those some people make it to where we can't show our feet on a painting stream. Changed my entire life.
Run a side business cooking chitlins and flavor the paint with chitlins. We're not flavoring the paint. It's not me. I'm innocent. Okay. We won't judge you. We just don't need to hear about it.
It's not me, but if you have any old socks laying around.
Here's my address.
Feels like silent judging. They're not being very silent about it, actually. One thing you know about Jen and I, we tell you.
Yeah, we'll let you know.
We tell you. All the judgmental stuff around here is very vocal.
That's exactly what a guilty person would say.
I want to make it clear, if you're new around here, we judge because we love you.
Yeah.
We like to think of it less as being judgmental, as more of a like tough love intervention style thing that we got going on.
And sometimes we're just surprised. We just haven't heard that one before. Like, I like locker socks. Okay. 100% judgment with love.
Yes. We judge like a loving mother judges.
Lumberjack Tim said there's a fun story of why I'm in defeat. I don't know that we know this about you.
Tim, you can just stop there. I feel like before this gets started, we can just end it.
T. Schmid wants to know, and this is a good question because I'm not sure of the exact answer. What brown is the earth texture? Is it dark umber or black brown? I feel like dark umber.
It's well
close.
It's close, but it's kind of like a cross between black brown and dark umber.
Yeah,
it's not quite as dark as black brown, but it's also not as
little darker than
warm as dark umber. So it's kind of right in between. It goes back to the carnival. Whoa, wait a minute. Is there a hairy foot story involved here? I don't want to talk about it. Feet are not my favorite thing. I don't really have I don't care either way.
No.
But I just don't go down the feet rabbit hole very often. It's just not a thing, you know?
He tries to tickle the bottom of my feet when I have my feet up on the couch and shoes on.
I do. Anytime.
So he's not like completely repulsed by feet.
Anytime feet are within hand range, tickle them.
Yeah.
What about ankles? What about them?
They're important.
I used to know somebody that didn't care, that the only part of the body that really grossed them out was the elbow.
Elbow?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. He had a real hard time with elbows because of the way the skin crinkles up on the elbow and it makes like a little flap weird. Kind of for some people. And he was like, elbows, I hate elbows. I was like, why not knees? He goes, because knees don't leave a little flap out front like that. Because like some people, like on his elbows, he was always like sanding his elbows. Oh, he had like, I don't know what it is, some sort of
you can get dry. I mean, like
therapy pad thing.
Yeah, like an exfoliator pad. I feel my elbows are a little dry. I could use some lotion right now.
The skin on your elbow is called a weenus. My weenus hurts.
Tim's foot story is much better in person, he says.
The dog bit my weenus. am lovely being judged about your painting and feet. Nobody judges you about your paint around here. Feet?
Hexa wants to know which brown color you used on the non-metallic metal parts.
Which brown color did I use on the non-metallic? The stuff that I'm painting right now? This kind of like, it's intended to be more of a, like some sort of composite plastic, I'm thinking, you know, like, if you're talking about that, all of that is,
Nope, on the blades on the hands.
Oh, the blades on the hand.
The wash.
The wash that I made is our burnt sienna. I actually was going to throw the cup away today, but I figured somebody might ask a question about it, and I'd show them. So we used our glazed wash medium and burnt sienna paint. So I still have it out here. Maybe, maybe not. I don't remember. Probably not. I do not. Actually, that's burnt orange. Sorry. Burnt orange. Right. And glazed wash medium. So about, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 times as much glazed wash medium to paint. And you'll create a wash. It's very fluid. Put some water in it, and then I just applied it like I would any filter, and let it run into the recesses and stuff to give it that kind of rust effect. Dirt, rust, grease, oil, whatever. Wanted them shiny, but to have a little bit of a muted color to them too. Shiny blades, dirty everything else. Can't imagine that a big bipedal rhinoceros with a railgun cleans his bondage chains very often. You stubbed your weenus. Don't do that. Spoodley says, I want to improve your painting, I'm assuming? You want to be judged and improve? Keep at it. Keep at it. You know, and people ask me, you know, like, how long do you have to paint before, you get good? And I'm like, I don't even, it's like a how long is a piece of string conversation, right? Some people come at miniature painting from other forms of art and painting, and so they have kind of a head start with the use of color and volumes, and then it becomes a little bit easier, but then color and maybe recognizing how the miniature wants to take the colors on, because when you're painting a larger canvas, you can get away with a lot of color variation that on a miniature make it look like a clown suit, and it's all spatial. On a miniature, you just don't have as much framework to work within, and so visually, your brain and eye coordinate everything instantaneously on a miniature because it's small. So if you go too far outlandish with all of your colors, it can look very, I call it clown suit, right? Very Harlequin-esque, Now, there are models that want that, and that's fine. But a lot of times you got to control it. And then you also have to make sure you balance it in with not doing too few colors. You can get too monochromatic. Again, perfect timing for that, but it's just kind of balancing everything out. So that is usually the hard part for everyone, I think. But as a new artist, which a lot of our gaming community are newer artists, they may not have drawn or done much more than color a coloring book in their life, and they pick up a paintbrush and paints for the first time because they love miniature wargaming, and that's the part we love, because you're basically a blank slate and you're getting to learn how to produce a visual composition utilizing this three-dimensional object that you're in love with, and think is really cool. And so you just kind of start from there. And then it's really, like we talk about on stream, building up volumes and value so that your model has depth, and then worrying about color later. Color becomes the easy part of the conversation at that point. To be a master of one's craft versus a master in general. I've always wondered, because that's, as a self-taught artist, pretty much. I mean, I took some classes and all that, and I've had really good people along my life give me instruction. So it's not that I haven't had teaching, but I never was formally taught. You know, I didn't spend money on an art education, right, wrong, or indifferent. But I've always liked the level of master, you know, at something, because when you work within a field, whether it be woodworking or metalworking, I have time in a lot of those kind of, you know, what would you even call them, crafting worlds, and you get artisans and masters in this terminology that I think is more based around schooling and education and pay rate than anything, because at all levels you find people that can do stuff people above them can't do, or they can't do what people below them can do. You know, it's very difficult to judge. So I don't like those terms. I'm one of those weird people that doesn't believe that good, better, best are terms that should be used for people. There's not a good, better, best of who you are as an individual along your path, really, other than comparing against yourself. They're really just how capable are you. I may be more capable at one technique than you, but that just takes practice and a want to get better, right? Because no amount of practice will make you better if you don't want to get there. These aren't, while they're repeatable tasks, they have to have a love and a drive behind them too. Otherwise, it's, you know, doesn't matter. You become the guy, and I hate I don't want to belittle anybody that does this as a passion, but you become the person out on the street that's using spray paint and newspaper to make Starfield paintings at the art walk late at night. You know, and there's a line of 7 or 8, you know, people along the sidewalk making the same damn painting, you know, because they've been taught how to do this one thing and sell it for $5. And that's assembly line, you know, still making art. But most of what we do as miniature painters, you can't do that because there's no repetition to it, you know, that is that completely, you can't just overlay miniature to miniature the same exact technique. So
But Lisa, the one thing I struggle with is the incredible smoothness you get on your minis compared to what I can paint. Not comparative, but more, how do I get that smooth coat? I'm practicing that a lot at the moment.
Smoothness is a weird one, right? Because I don't really believe that I paint very smoothly, me personally. There are times where you want smoothness. As an example, using Morgana here, you know, I want the skin to be smoother just because I envision the model that way. You know, the sculpt doesn't have texture on the skin. I like that kind of porcelain look on this particular model, but not always. And then, you know, but different when I'm doing the, you know, the textures on the, whatever this drape is called, shawl, whatever the hell this thing is, and skirt. You know, so I love texture. I love visual texture in my models. It's just utilizing that texture in a way that pulls it off so that you can have the compare and contrast portion of smoothness versus texture to have the model read differently at different parts. You know, it makes clothing look like clothing and skin look like skin and whatever, but model to model it may change how you do it. Working on smoothness off the brush is something that, again, and you know, I don't want to be a broken record, it just becomes practice and finding your stride and how you want to do it. There's so many different ways as a painter to be able to get your blends to be smooth, right? If you look at one of the people out there that does the smoothest blends in the world, right, Mashik from Flame On, has just got these buttery smooth blends. But when you look at how his process is, if you sign up for his Patreon and you look at what his process is, right, you find that, okay, maybe that's not the level of I don't want to call it tedium, but like that's way too much granular painting for me. I don't do that. So how can I get something that looks visually smooth in the areas I want it without having to break down and do 17 micro blends between my color gradations, right? And whether you're glazing or mixing is irrelevant. If you're doing it like that, there's a reason, and it can look spectacular. But there's between that and then just slapping it on, you know, because like we did the whole non-blended Thanos chibi, right, where we didn't blend anything. There's not a single ounce of blending on this model, and it still looks good. So smoothness, if talking about blending, is something that is more of a stylistic thing that you can move wherever you need it to fit what your goal is. And as you get better, more pronounced with your techniques, then you can maneuver that goal around. You can have certain minis that are highly textured and some that aren't, whatever, and you just start to feel comfortable and have a confidence to just say, what does this model want? And you can answer that question. But there's no reason to choose and feel, or let's take that back. There's no reason to feel bad about your model if it's not smoothly blended. Utilize the stage that you're at in your learning and your progression to make the best of your ability at any given time. Not having smoothness in your blends, then don't blend, right? If you're not comfortable with your blends, do something more like this. Not that you want everything to be over the top comic style, but you don't have to. Like when we look at, say, the gold is just a bunch of colors gradient up, and then we put a punch of brightness on there, obviously. But when you look at like the jade, right? The jade from this distance at the camera looks like there's blends, but there's none, right? That was this challenge, was to do this guy with 0 blends. That's all just, shapes, geometrical shapes. 1 color on his rib, 2, 3, 4 colors, no blending, right? So if you don't have smooth blending capabilities yet, you're not confident there, then do something like this, mixing color on your palette and just getting those simple increases in brightness of that color, and then painting more layers and not worrying about the blend, but just nesting them inside themselves like a Russian nesting doll, and you get this look that looks blended from a distance. So there's ways to overcome any kind of limitation there. Now, if smoothness means smoothness of paint, that's a thinning question, right? So if you are at a point where your paint has texture and brush marks in it, like you can see your brush stroke in it, you need to be thinning your paint more, or maybe not more, but differently, right? So that you're taking a lot, it comes from a lot of not taking the paint off of the brush. You'll notice that I unload my brush on my thumb palette a lot so that I don't have so much paint when I go to touch the model with the brush, because that paint has to be moved around on the model. And especially when doing small areas, you can imagine like doing the little pinpricks of glow on the non-metallic gold on her. There's not a lot of space to put paint, so I don't want a lot of paint because I don't want to have it be a big blob that I have to move around because there's nowhere to move it. So I take most of the paint off on my thumb so that when I go to the model, I only have the paint necessary for a few strokes, and then I go get more paint, put it on my thumb, paint on the model. That will help wick a lot of the moisture off of your brush so that when you're painting even on bigger areas, you won't get brush strokes that way. So there's lots of other nuances and technique on how to make sure you're controlling smoothness, if smoothness is a physical thing. Right? Nutra says, "Oh my God, Jen Cam, hello!" Jen looks like she's in the evil genius layer. She is. She's in the production corner. Nobody puts baby in the corner. She has all the buttons. She can literally control everything on the stream. Maverick, it's called cell shading. It's just layering without blending, but yeah. Cell shading is a convoluted word for artist painting because each cell was a different layer of...
I was going to say, wasn't it the clear and then
each one was painted by a different painter in a color so they could mass produce, right? And so you had layers that went together on a cell to give you that shading. Same outcome, right? But not all painted together. Just one of those terms that I grew up knowing it as something else, so it's hard to tune in here. But yeah, we in the model world we call that that kind of animation style.
Nutrimental, I'm not going to be at Nova Open. Just Jason and Baby J are going to be there.
Just the two of us.
Yeah.
I think Steven Garcia is going to sit with us, although he's painting. He's doing a bunch of classes and stuff.
And wonderful, but I will not be there.
Yeah, Maverick, that's what's here, right? So this is all more heavy textured brushwork on her skin, right? So we did brushwork on 100% of the skin until we got to the highlights, and then I highlighted the initial highlights with the airbrush because the airbrush with a thin paint working through it can cover up a lot of the dimensioning and texture you get when brush painting, and it allows you to still paint quickly to still kind of sketch, because I really like sketching my values in and finding how the model wants to be, and going through and using the airbrush with very, very diluted paint so that it doesn't do like a blast and do, you know, like, oh my God, I messed up. Because of course you're going over hours of work a lot of times when you do that. But you'll find that a lot of the painters from Europe and things like that use that same technique to get what appears to be very smooth blends. But if you get the model in your hand and you look at it, while it is very smooth, you can see the underlying brush strokes. What the airbrush does is just fudge that to the eye and give that little bit of defocus to your brush strokes, because each brush stroke creates a contrast with the layer underneath it that provides texture visually, and then the airbrush just fuzzes that out, makes it a little out of focus. But rather than having a model that is a complete airbrushed model, I gotta have something around here. Yeah, one of our blood angels, let's say, where we've got just the airbrush base coats down on these guys, right? When you do like this, and all you're doing, well, this guy has some, that guy has some brushwork on him. This guy, right? All of this is simply airbrush work, right? And the airbrush alone can look a little out of focus. Oh, I'm lying, he has brushwork on him too. But you can see, like on the back, the airbrush itself looks a way out of focus until you bring it in with some line work, just edge work and shine and things like that to dial it back in. So that can be soft and indicative of, oh yeah, you airbrush that. And instead, think about it in reverse. Do your brushwork first, get your colors laid on, and then you can work on the airbrush as a, not a final, because you're still going to do brushwork over the top of it generally, but it's going to be a really good filtering layer that smooths out your rougher blends. But you've done your rougher blends on purpose, because you know you have this tool in the background that can smooth them out, so you don't spend as much time on the brush. It can cut down your painting time to give very similar, if not exact, results as if you'd have taken all that time to do your blending. Again, it's just a style and technique preference. A lot of times there's as many ways to get to the finish line as there are runners in the race, right? And so we all handle it a little bit different. It's about finding what feels comfortable for you so that you can repeat it again and again and get achievable and better results model to model as you're growing. Nutra says, I think we hobbyists suffer in general from not recognizing that even the best painters have visible layer and glaze lines if you're super up close. Yeah, exactly. We see everything through a filtered lens, right, of the internet 90%, 80% of the time. If you travel a lot, go to shows, look at models in display cases, hold them, look at that. I've judged a lot of these shows, and you'll see those nuances. You'll see the brush strokes. You know, it's very rare that I pick up a model and I'm like, damn. You know, because you just can't tell. It looks like it was painted by, you know, some sort of alien with 80 million arms and super fine detail brushes. But I'm a texture artist too. I really like texture, but I like, you have to control it. You can't just slap your paint around, right? So it retreats away from that like canvas work where you could use a very textured stroke across an entire canvas and give some avant art piece that would look amazing. It's harder to do that here, you know. There are a lot of painters that will do it, but it's hard to retain contrast and volumes when doing that on a three-dimensional piece, as opposed to on a flat canvas. Punisher asks, how would you approach battle damage and weathering like on your Guardian model on black armor? You like the depth of the chips and scratches, but worry brown won't show well against the black and will not read right. Are you just overthinking it? Brown is probably not the right color, because in order to get to a brown that will have contrast enough with the black armor, depending on how bright you've gone with your black, you'll probably want to choose a gray, you know, some other color. I mean, you could do it with blue grays, you could make other colors, you know. It won't have the same feel of like rusted underneath feeling. You can do that after the fact. You could do the chips with gray, then highlight them as you go. You know, as you go in and highlight each of the chips. It was easy on this one with the blue and the orange, right? But you get in there and you highlight all of those individual chips, and this is black brown, and then I didn't do anything else to the black brown on this. It was really fast because it just worked very, very well with everything else we had done, right?
Can you remind me, those are not part of the sculpt, right?
No, all
You
of
just
these
painted
chips
all
are
that.
painted on.
So
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah, the sculpt is very smooth, actually. It might have a couple of, like, nicks along the edges, but no, it's all this is done by hand.
Magic.
Right. And so, you know, you get darker colors and want to pull the chips off, and it's easier to go with something that is a lighter contrasting color, and then you may just need to add a step and add, like, if you want a little rust effect, go in with a little burnt sienna or burnt orange and just kind of stipple that inside the bigger chunks where the paint has come off. That'll give you some color in there, that because if you think, you know, brown is not really anything other than a darker orange in the situation where we've done it on the orange here, but it works well. On black, doesn't give you any contrast. But yeah, we've got like the brown gray, you've got red gray, so you've got lots of new paints in the line that would get you there. And like I said, you just might need to put another step in there that gives you a little bit of color in the bigger chunks.
T. Schmidt said that you guys need to take me on more trips.
Take T. Schmidt on more trips?
Me.
Oh, Jen on more trips. We are trying to get to a point where we can do that. We're doing a lot of internal discussing on how we can have Jen and I be present at shows together. Right now it's very tough because we don't have anyone else that runs things at a high level at the office. That changes in September, though. We have a new business manager. So you might see us for fewer days, but both of us at all the shows pretty soon. Would be our hope. So if you're highlighting with bluish grays, would a more neutral gray be the way to go on those chips? Yeah, like even dark neutral gray and neutral gray. You might have to use neutral gray in the darker shadows of the black where you need the contrast because the dark neutral gray won't give it to you. Or let me think about this. Reverse. Dark neutral gray in the darkest spots because it will still provide some contrast, and then neutral gray as you move up into where your highlights are on the black armor, because remember your chip may need to change colors as it goes because it gets highlighted with the rest of the model. It's part of what we forget as artists sometimes, and one of the reasons why black brown kind of works really well on lighter colored armor.
Spoodly Doodler said, I've applied once but was curious with the requirements to become one of the monumentals. What I'm not quite making it to.
Spoodly. It just depends. We typically, if you've applied, I know on there we need to change the language because I think it says we get back to it like within 24 to 48 hours. I think
really
that hadn't been updated in a
now.
long time. It's literally, we do like reviews once a month because of the volume of people through there. So don't feel bad. Baby J's not here. He runs all
Jordan
that.
does.
So he is the better one to speak to. But you can send a question to support and he'll get back with you.
Yep, support at Monument Hobbies. I'll forward it over to Jordan. Yeah, it may have just kind of gotten buried. I don't know. But yeah, just reach out again.
What does Spoodly Doodler set up above? I'm going to scroll up a little bit. It says, I think we hobbyists suffer from just being our own worst critics. Oh, all the time. Yeah. One of the things that I have said for so long is that the thing about being human, I think in general, is that we are much better judges and critics than doers when we first get involved with something, and probably forever. But when you get excited about a thing, right? Let's say I always, some reason, journey into like scuba diving, right? Because it's like a hobby. I've known a lot of people that always wanted to get into it and it never happened. But if you want to go scuba diving, you start looking at people scuba diving on Instagram and Google and YouTube, and you find these things, and you try to, nowadays you can pace yourself and figure out, okay, is this right for me? What do I want to do? And so if you get down that rabbit hole and you decide you want to do it, maybe you buy some gear, you're going to get constantly looking at people's stuff, and you're going to become judgmental, neither negative or positive to say that, I don't think, but you're going to have a judgment that you can make very quickly because you've been educating yourself about it even though you haven't done it, right? And so you can start to recognize things because you've read that there's a particular flaw in this way of doing things, right? How you adjust your harness and all of this, and so you'll see a picture and you might, get it in your head that, oh, that's wrong, but you don't understand because you haven't been there and done it yet. And so that's why we say just paint, just get out there and paint, because you'll see these pictures. You'll start to read or watch a YouTube video or come here on Twitch, hear something that really resonates with you as to why, we talked about synthetic and sable brushes, and it might really resonate with you as a reason why sables are better. And so you go off and tell somebody else that, oh no, sables are totally better. And then they paint something that blows your mind with a synthetic brush. And so you have to remember that everybody's on their own kind of individual journey. Everybody has a lot of time and education and practice under their belt that varies from person to person. And that's why I say don't compare your work to anybody else except your last piece of work. It's okay to look at something on the internet, look at something I may do or something that may happen on a YouTube channel you're watching, and say to yourself, hey, I want to achieve that, right? Like Spoodley's saying, hey, I just want to get to a level of X, and that's great. But understand that level of painting is going to be a different journey for you than it was for any of the people you're watching, right? Because of the things that are going on in your life, the amount of time you can spend doing it, how excited you get, how up and down your ability to focus on it is. Some people can just get in there and grind, right? Like they literally, come home from work, sit down, paint for 5 hours, go to bed, wake up, go to work, come home and paint for 5 hours. And the rest of us that can't do that, are going to have a different journey. You're going to don't go back and look at, damn dude, in 10 months, that guy was amazing. I've been doing this for 2 years and can't paint like that. Yeah, but,
there's no
yeah,
way
but you're
to
raising
know.
3
There's
children and have
so many things.
Yeah.
Like it just is impossible. And
yeah, comparison is the thief of joy.
Absolutely.
Panic Bomb is the way to say that, is only compare yourself to your last work. And you have to do your first work to get into that stride. So just paint, right? Don't worry, don't get analysis paralysis. Don't come on here and say, oh, I could never start because I'll never be that good. Screw that thought. Paint your models, right? Just putting paint on models makes you an artist. Your journey begins there. Get it all wrong, hate it, put it on a shelf, and look back at it every day, because you'll only go up from there, and you can look back and go, oh my God, I can't believe I painted that so long ago, right? I mean, I brought models on here. Where did those models go? Didn't I? I think I brought some orc models on here that were from like 2004, 2005 or something like that I showed you guys.
there's also this self-fulfilling prophecy, and I used to say this to my students all the time, that if you say you can't do something, you're right.
Oh yeah.
You have to change your mindset. Like, I can do that with practice, or I can do that someday, or whatever.
Here's me circa, I don't know, nearly 20 years ago, and the way my models look back then, right? I am not ashamed of anything from 20 years ago. I can look at this and tell you exactly what I was doing to paint, you know? I can look at what I was doing. I can look and see that I was using a bunch of very dark inks over my base layer and then highlighting back up, because I get these islands of muscles going on that are too much. There's too much contrast in there. You know, I can see that my highlighting isn't as consistent from top to bottom as it needs to be, right? My overall composition isn't as good. You know, there's a little bit of darkness underneath his butt, but it probably needed to have more mid-tone come up around the side. You know, so I can sit here and I can go back through and have fun looking at what I used to do, right? But, you know, back then, there was a lot of difference in the way we treated the art of miniature painting too, you know? Not as many products, not as many things to do, not as many techniques, not as much internet to see it all on, so it was harder to learn because you're really constricted to the group you were with, or what came out in White Dwarf, you know? And so you just kind of go with the flow, you know? But a lot of what's here still translates to what I do today, you know, doing the shine and the reflective surface stuff on the lenses, on the goggles, and all that kind of stuff still moves forward with me, you know? So, you know, always keep your stuff, and I say that, I'm really bad at that. I think these may be some of the oldest models I still own of stuff that I've painted. But it's a neat journey to look back and say, oh gosh, I have these models from 20 plus years ago, and look at this, look what I was doing. You kind of wish you didn't repaint all your early stuff. Yeah, Spoodly, exactly. It's not really a comparison so much as a learning, right? I don't call that comparison. You're just inspecting something that's being done and saying, how can I do that? What do I think that person did? Or, hey, can I show a picture off on Discord and ask you some questions? How did they achieve this? Because I want to do that. And then you get information that helps you learn, and then you go practice it, right? That's the amazing thing about today. You get 50 million pictures you can look at, and 50 million people you can talk to about those pictures that you think are cool. Yeah. And you're closer to instant gratification than ever before in the world of creating anything. Whether it's, I want to know how to make that spaghetti, right? You can ask on a Pinterest board or in a forum or,
and
Instagram
you can post in a comment. Boom. Yeah. Like it's so much more accessible now. Because you can see the picture on Instagram, like, oh, that's really cool, and ask them in a comment, how did you do that?
Yeah. And usually they'll get back to you.
Or on stream, exactly. That's why we do this every day.
I think the hard thing as a miniature painter is to watch people who are new to the world. The first question they ask is, what blue did you use? Yeah. Oh my God, what purples did you use on that? Yeah. That's not going to help you a lick. Me telling you the colors I used 9 times out of 10 isn't going to help you unless you already understand the technique. Technique is everything in painting. Applying values to get volumes and contrast is where you need to focus. I'm going to go out and say it. 100% of your effort as a new miniature painter should be understanding how to apply light to your model, how to get highlights where they need to go, shadows where they need to go, textures to look like textures. That's all part of that same equation. Screw color. That stuff comes later. You can paint a model in monotone. If you can pick up one color, your favorite color, and paint the model to make it look like I can tell the difference between skin and leather with one color, you're a hero, right? You've already won the internet, right? So if you focus there, then adding color to that is a lot easier, which is why we talk about that. We always talk about value and volume. But a lot of people get stuck in the, hey, what red did you use? PCG Scorpion says, I have no technique. I need an actual class. There's nothing wrong with that either.
There's lots of them.
The good thing there, too, is there's tons of them. Online, one-on-ones. Holy hell, you can get some of the best teachers.
Some really great painters out there that are doing virtual classes.
We used to, and I had a blast with it, but not enough time in the day anymore.
Gosu said, I took 6 months of painting lessons and it completely changed my game. That's awesome. That's very cool.
Yeah, sometimes it's just the social aspect of it along with that knowledge. So I've had a lot of people that just going to paint night at their local store helps tremendously, right? You can just kind of sit down with other people and just discussing painting can make you feel like you're headed in a better direction than sitting in your house alone. Even with all the resources we're talking about on the internet, you need to be able to bounce ideas off of people, have people show you something that they're doing, ask questions, and in a live scenario, what better way? So classes at conventions are great. Tremendous artists out there that even if all you get out of it is to sit there and watch them paint, sometimes is okay. I mean, that's what we do here a lot of the time. You just get to watch the brushstrokes go down and take away from it what you will. Yeah, Maverick, exactly, right? The wording is that sometimes you might be dealing, you might come in here and hear me say one thing and then not really get it, like it doesn't hit, but somebody else will say basically the same thing, but using words that make sense to you. That's a real learning thing. That's a thing that can be debilitating if you have poor teachers because they're not speaking in the right way for you. The way people learn is not all the same.
No.
We are all very
Definitely
different,
not.
right? I'm a person that learns by watching. I can have you turn the volume off, and I will watch you weld, and I will pick up those tools and weld by mimicking your actions, how I've interpreted them. I might pick up bad habits that way, which has happened to me throughout my life, as with wood and metal and everything, because I watched somebody who knew everything except that one thing, but they didn't vocalize that they didn't know that one thing, and so I learned the one thing they did wrong. I just was part of my thing too, you know. And later on, somebody go, "Why do you do that?" You know, I always like to say that our house, when I was a kid, our toaster, the coils were burnt out on the back side of the toaster slot, so it only toasted on one side. So, and I don't remember which side it was. I think it was the back side was good and the front side was bad, where the slot was. And so when you pulled your toast out, you always turned it over to butter it, because that was the side that was warm, and because the coils on the backside just didn't get, it's still warm, but
so
it didn't.
You didn't flip it and toast it on the other side. You just still only one side.
No,
toast.
I only did it. Nobody got time for that. So you toast it, you pull it out and flip it over and butter it. I still to this day take things out of the toaster and turn them over to butter the backside, because it's a learned response of that process. So I could watch you. You could watch me do something, and I might do it wrong the day, or do it, you know, mess it up, whatever. I don't think with painting it's not as visible a thing. But you could watch somebody do something, and they don't know what they're doing, but they get by. They've always just gotten by doing this one little trick they learned, and so then you mimic it, and it becomes you. And now you can start seeing how generationally we get to where we embed the wrong thing, but if it does the job, it just becomes what you do. So.
Nutrimentia, I was going to ask that same question when you said that she was sitting out in her mail truck, afraid to come in because it was raining. That's like their motto.
Goobertown gets unlurked. Brent, you been unlurked.
Jade Cerebria said that that's how I learned to weld.
Yep.
Like the same way you did.
Yep. I learned all my... Well, now, you know, there were times where people would talk to me as well, but a lot of times I would almost tune out what was being said. If I could sit there under the hood and watch them pull a weld, then I could actually learn more from kind of judging the speed they were doing it, you know, especially with things like MIG, where it's just one focus point. That became very easy for me, and I learned and picked those up almost immediately. When I did my tattoo apprenticeship, it was a little unfair because I came from an electrical background and electronics background, and one of the first things my tattoo instructor, the artist that I was apprenticing under, had me do is he gave me a bad tattoo machine. Like, the coils were burnt out on it, and so it didn't work. And so he said, I want you to take this apart and learn all the pieces and put it back together. And I'd put it back together, hand it to him, and he'd be like, that's great, do it again. And he just, because that's the way he had gotten his apprenticeship, is they just made him tear, so that you could become so familiar with the machine that it was like taking a gun apart and putting it back together. It would always work. And then he had me hook it up, and he played like I had broken it. He goes, go ahead and put it to power, you know, and I put it to power, and he goes, now hit the pedal, and I go, well, it's not going to work. And he goes, how do you mean it's not going to work? Because he didn't tell me it was busted, you know. I go, well, this coil's burnt out. You can see the burn spot on the coil. And he just kind of shook his head. He goes, I knew having an electrical guy was not going to work the same way. He was trying to do it with me, and I caught it, right, because I was like, I know these components. I know this isn't going to work. But that's just been me particular. I like to pay attention to those little nuances of how things work, how they go together, what makes them tick, so that I can understand them better, because I do like tearing things apart and building them back together. But some people don't. Some people don't pay attention to those nuances. They don't look at the different parts of a brush. It's just a brush. A brush is a simple machine. You know, it's got bristles, a ferrule, and a handle. That's it, right? But some people don't realize it. They don't see it that way. They don't see it as three parts. So I say, hey, you're building up too much paint in the ferrule. That's why your brush is spinning. They go, what's that? Yeah. And I'm thinking, dude, there's only three parts to a brush. What do you mean, what's that? But they just have a brush. And then you have to break it down and talk to them. So again, it's that learning ability. You have to know your audience and start with, you know, you're always afraid, I think, of dumbing it down. Like, a bunch of people are going to know what I'm about to say, but for those that don't, this is going to help immensely, right? And start from there. USPS drove off without delivering your package.
Nutrimentia said, I heard a story about a woman who always cuts the ends off her pot roasts And only later in life
'Cause it
learned
didn't
that
fit
her
in the
mom
pan.
did it because it didn't fit the pan.
Yeah, it didn't fit in the pan. Yep, you hear about it. That's like almost like urban legend status.
Yeah.
Somebody would cut off the back of the turkey or something like that because then they had a
that's
small stove
funny.
when they grew up, or oven.
Oh, dude. I worked from home today specifically so I could get this package before it got wet. Well,
Definitely good to learn all the parts of your tools. I don't always know them. Some tools don't interest me in the least. some tools I'm like, don't care what this is made out of. It only has to work once. Reader's Digest story on the pot roast. I love that kind of stuff, though.
yeah.
But again, it just goes back to say that, learning is individual. Everybody does it differently. Don't feel bad if somebody who you hold in high regard is talking about a subject and you don't get it. They are not speaking in a language that makes sense to you, and that's fine. But don't stop your journey. Keep going out. Non-metallic metal is one of the roughest ones, right? Finding somebody that can talk to you about how to paint reflected surfaces in a way that you get it and can start sketching it out on a model is worth its weight in gold, because it will teach you so much about painting in general, right? But finding that person can be tough. It's not always going to be me, right? It may not be Baby J. It may not be anybody here at Monument. You might go someplace else. Don't feel bad about it. Just stay on your journey until you find somebody that speaks your language. Of course, if you're here and you don't understand something I'm talking about, it's all on you. I'm perfect. I always describe things 100% the only right way. Never miss it. That's all you.
Perfect at drinking chocolate milk. That is true. Very skilled at that.
My name is Jason, and I have a problem. I do. My newfound joy in life is Starbucks chocolate milk, and it's horrible to think that I go to Starbucks for chocolate milk. I think every day I have this thought, and every day I'm like, screw it, I don't even care.
Well, it has to be from the right Starbucks, because it doesn't matter that they've got 50 people working there. That's the Starbucks that makes it right. The other Starbucks, 50 different people, they don't make it right. So we have to go to the same Starbucks all the time.
She is not lying. Well, like Baby J and I tried to get it in, because now he's addicted too. We tried to get it in Indianapolis.
Yeah.
And they didn't understand. They're like, you want a mocha? No, we want venti cold milk with mocha and ice. And they got it wrong. They got it wrong in the airport. It's not something they do. They can do it, but it's not something they do. That's why I only get it at this one, because they're the ones that told me about it.
Well, yes, and I can tell you how you should order it.
Venti, cold milk,
No.
mocha.
You got to tell them how much mocha.
I forget.
That's why I'm going to tell you.
Because that's where they mess up. They're like, 1 pump? Like, do I look like I was born yesterday?
So you need to order it as a cold milk, venti cold milk with 6 pumps of mocha sauce.
Ooh, boy.
Then it'll be right. And you should be able to get that at any Starbucks. He would have a harder time in life without me, for sure.
Blah. She tells me all the time. She's like, I made it. I tell her. I'll sit around and I'll go, you might ought to do that a little differently. She's like, I made it to 51 without listening to you. That's basically what she says.
I'm not even 51 yet. So I
added that in there. It's only like a couple weeks away, so. It's Jen's birthday in a couple weeks. She's like, I'm not even 51 yet. I've never said that.
But I did what? Oh, because we were talking about food. They were talking about eating their donuts and drinking their Red Bulls, and I was telling the story about how when I was in high school, my sophomore year of high school, every single day for lunch, I would have a can of Diet Coke, a 6-pack of chocolate donuts, and a bagel with cream cheese. And I said, and I turned out just fine. So, eat your donuts.
Oh yeah, they were talking about donuts.
Yeah. The little, I think Maddie had a bag of the powdered ones. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nah, I'm not. I mean, I am as old as I am. There's no way to get around it. So, no, he can say it, but I am not 51 yet. So, that I will correct.
She is 50 and 300 and however many days.
50 some days, probably. What's today? 14? So my birthday's in 13 days. So 365 minus 13 is
that many. 52. 352.
Happy wife, happy life. Well, we're not married, so
damn.
That's my problem, I think.
She hadn't proposed yet. I'm holding out for a better ring.
I mean, in my mind, I'm still like 25, so if that equals ageless, then I am ageless. Stuck at 25.
I feel like that's the only place it matters.
In your mind?
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, sometimes...
I had this person who I didn't know from Adam at Gen Con come by. And I don't remember, we were discussing something with the group, and, Baby J said something, or Phil said something, and came up that I was like 53.
Yeah.
And that person looked at me and said, no way. They were like, I would have said maybe 37, 40 at the outside.
Wow.
Yeah, I was like, okay,
That's
you're hired.
Nice.
You and me, we're going to do great things together.
Donettis.
You're 42 in October and you still dance at hardcore shows like you're in your 20s.
I mean, if you still can, that's how you continue to feel that way.
And now he has laser eyes, so they better watch out.
So he can go even longer.
Better watch out. Tim's got laser eyes.
Ginger Beef said, help, I'm a 2-year-old trapped in a 45-year-old body. Yeah, I feel that too. I mean, not 2, but...
2's stretching it.
Yeah. Because I can mostly take care of myself.
Yeah.
But did I tell you about the day, it was like a month ago, and I had on my Duran Duran shirt from the concert, and I was at Safeway, and I'm checking out, I'm walking up to the register to check out, and this guy comes walking up to me, and he's like, I love your shirt. And I looked at him, I'm like, cool, thanks. And I'm like, this old guy is telling me he likes my shirt. And I noticed that he also had one on from the concert. I'm like, oh, I like yours too. And I'm like, wow, this old guy is like a Duran Duran fan. I'm like, he's probably my age.
It's like, oh. We share a kinship.
Yeah. It does. The outside does matter too. Watt said I took a nap on Saturday on a bad couch, and now I have sore ribs. That is true. Yeah, it's not just in your mind.
No, it is. No matter how young you may think you are, your body will remind you every now and then that, hey, old man.
Yeah. Nope, can't do that anymore.
Might not want to do that.
Well, so I when I teach yoga, which I don't do very often anymore, unfortunately, but like one of the big things that we say to people is like, I'm here to guide you. You're in charge. You got to listen to what your body's telling you. And I've always added the part of not only listen to it, but believe what it's telling you. Because I know that like last week I could do this one particular thing. This week I'm not feeling that, but I did it before, so I'm gonna try it, and then you end up hurting yourself. So you got to not only listen to yourself, but believe what your body is telling you. Maverick, good music is ageless. That is true. I went to the Duran Duran concert when they were here last year. It was like September of last year.
Oh, that's right.
And it was fantastic.
Well,
Just as good as when I saw them
I'll
as
just
a
throw back my
teenager.
legs and pollute my britches with delight.
Phoenix Chitin, thank you for that resub. 15 months.
Thank you, Phoenix.
PCG Scorpion. That's how you stay young.
Just restarted playing with these
Yep.
toy soldiers, and you're never looking
Never
back.
looking
I'm
back.
telling you, man. There's no. Why
Don't
should you?
quit?
Why should you?
Friday night videos.
Oh my God! Back before MTV.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was around the same time as MTV. Like,
Oh, yeah,
still,
maybe
it
so.
still existed when MTV
But that was what you had to
existed.
watch if you
But
didn't have MTV.
cable. Yeah, exactly. I remember taping Friday night videos and watching it over and over and over again. For all you young people out there, taping is what we used to do before DVR. Oh, Maverick Minis, I'm jealous. Although I've seen a million videos, so I feel like I've seen her concert. And I heard rumblings that they might have been making a video, like a concert film at the LA shows. So I'm
Who's
excited
this?
for that. Taylor Swift. I don't know. I mean, have you heard anything or seen anything about her tour that she just finished?
Supposedly really big, but
Amazing. 3 hour, like it was only on weekends except for the last
it's just
the
all
last one was LA.
the
and
the
she was
ticket
there for like a
prices
week.
are redonkulous.
The ticket prices were expensive and you could not
Couldn't
get
get
them.
They're
I
like
tried.
sold out in like 15
I
minutes.
tried getting tickets. I wasn't
Oh, did you?
anywhere near close enough to like you had to sign up for access to get the tickets.
Oh, I remember you
and
saying
I couldn't
her.
even get that.
Yeah. Didn't Christine try something too?
She did. Yep. Christine, my friend, opened a credit card for whatever Capital One or whatever sponsored the event so she could get early access to them.
Did she get
Lumberjack
tickets?
Tim's a Swiftie. What'd you say?
Did she get tickets?
No, Lumberjack Tim is totally a Swiftie. He said he goes to shows and punches friends, but he also really loves her new album. She's amazing. That's true. Slayer Street said there are two types of people in the world: people who like Taylor Swift and liars.
So, my version of modern music is very odd because there are a lot of songs that I listen to, or I don't listen to them, but then when I hear them, they're catchy. We would be out at a restaurant. I'd be like, "What is this song? This song's really good." And she'd say Taylor Swift, and I'd feel bad. But it's still a good song. You know, yeah. I can't deny that if it's catchy and it makes me stand up and say, who is this? I don't listen to music that way anymore, so I don't know who's who.
I've always been like, she's been kind of on my radar and like, oh yeah, that's a good song, but I never, was like into the whole album until her COVID stuff when she released the Folklore and the everything since. That's when I really got into her. Phoenix Chitin, love listening to this. My coworkers make me feel old, and here, nope, I'm normal because we remember these things. So the weird thing for Jason and me is that we are older than the parents of some of our employees.
Oh my God.
So
it's so funny.
So it's that's been an adjustment.
We've had people, like some of the employees have brought their parents to show them the office, like if they're in town or whatever. And it's so funny that it's like, hey, we could hang out with your dad.
Dragoon 49er said I tried to get my 18-year-old daughter to use a rotary phone and she could not figure it out.
What am I looking at? What even is this?
I don't understand like the context
boomer.
behind hang up or roll your window down. Those are things that we don't do anymore.
Oh, like a manual
Crank
window.
roll.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't remember. I was having a conversation the other day, and I was like, "Oh, I probably lost everybody because they don't even know what I'm talking about." It was here in the office.
Like when I have to preface it by saying, "Okay, kids, for those of you who don't know what taping is, it's what we did before DVR."
Ginger Beef, Slayer, all the way. Slayer is a band that hasn't changed much in decades, and I respect that.
I think he was referring to Slayer Street, who said that they're the two types of people in the world, the Taylor Swift fans and the liars.
Oh, no. I thought he was talking about the band.
I mean, I could be wrong, but...
Well... I think the problem that for Jen, though, is that there's another singer who I consider to be like Taylor Swift that you despise.
Katy Perry.
Katy Perry.
Can't stand her.
And I think there's Katy Perry songs that I like.
No. There are not any that you like.
I've been told. I was just told. Oh, yeah, Ginger says the band. What else? Okay, good. We were on the same level here. She threw me a curveball. You took your niece and nephew to an antique store, and I told them they could have anything they wanted. Your niece bought a bell, and your nephew got a rotary phone.
That's awesome.
It's just fun that it's like, that's like the funny stuff, right? That's like the stuff that people are like, what is this? Where did they dig this up from? Egypt?
Like relics. Ancient relics.
These are ancient relics from
I have a rotary
Sumeria.
phone. It's super fancy. It's like gold, and I love it. Oh, that's a good point, Wad. For those of you who don't know what a DVR is, that's what we did before streaming. It's true. Although I know people still use the DVR because my friends do, and they still call it taping. Like, oh, I got to tape that. I'm not going to be home. Okay.
That's not how that works. There's no tape anymore. I missed the whole DVR thing. I never really recorded shows.
Yeah.
After about the age of maybe 10, we'd have to look back in time and figure out when the Who's farewell concert to America was. I think it happened in like Toronto or something like that, or to the Americas. And the first time the Who called it quits, I taped that on a cassette tape on my jam box that had really bad FM reception. I kept holding the antenna of the rabbit ears to try to get better reception so I could tape the Who concert. And I did that, and it sucked, and I gave up on taping anything. And I don't think I ever, I mean, maybe every now and then, but nah. And so when DVR came out, I was like, cool, don't care. You know? I was like, whatever.
DVR to me was like buying bananas. I recorded everything, thinking
and didn't watch any of it,
and never watched any.
And never watched any of it. The first time your daughter played Half-Life Alyx, she picked up a video cassette, looked at it, and said, "Whatever is this?" and threw it over her shoulder. Like in the game, you can do that? Cassette tapes when you were sitting there waiting for the song, you had to call in a request, came on the radio.
Press record so you could record it off the radio.
Never accidentally recorded over the wrong VHS. Oh my God, that was always a problem. You didn't have cable when DVR was a thing? It just passed me by. And it's funny because I was heavily in the technology world and sector as my job, you know, and DVR was just, we had to integrate with a bunch of those people when, may have been Hulu. I think it was Hulu. When Hulu first started, I met those guys at a conference, and they were in Silicon Valley, and they gave me their cards, and we talked to them. They really wanted, because we were an Apple authorized manufacturer. We made parts of our system that had Apple components in them. You have to buy their chipset and all this stuff to be able to talk to their iPod back in the day, right? And so the Hulu guys, I think it was Hulu, contacted us. We wrote a bunch of software together and got their box to work, and they gave me a free one. And or Voodoo, I think it was called Voodoo.
Yeah, I was to say Hulu is.
It was
streaming.
Voodoo.
I don't think they've ever had cable, but Voodoo.
We'd have to look. I think Voodoo may have become Hulu.
Oh.
Anyway, dealt with those guys forever, and I was the one, like, I'm the chief engineer, and I'm like having to do these business deals, and I'm like, I would never use this. I was like, it sucked so bad sometimes that I had to be involved in inventing these electronics, and I'm like, this is the stupidest thing ever. Nobody's gonna do this, and of course people were doing it all over the place, right?
Mixtapes. I was the queen of the mixtape. Casey Kasem was great for getting favorite songs because you knew they'd play at some point. That is true on the American Top 40.
Speaking of iPod, anywhere remember Zune? Yeah, I remember Zune. Wasn't that Microsoft's? Zune?
I'm definitely in the Gen X side of TikTok because I get a lot of videos where they'll play like the audio of Casey Kasem reading a long distance dedication.
Oh yeah.
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 And I get a lot of Gen X like, hey, if you were born in the 70s, you remember these things, and then it was all these like things that make you really nostalgic.
Oh heck yeah. That's the good stuff.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do. You had a video device you could connect between two VCRs and it would cancel out the copyright signal so you could record perfect copies of rented cassettes. Yep.
Ooh.
Yep. You just had to have a VCR with an output that could record to the other one because it didn't broadcast that stuff. That's how my buddy in Japan got all of the anime stuff that he would send me. Using some bright neutral gray right now. It's not too much brighter than the faded green, but just enough to where when I don't want to pile a bunch of brightness, I don't want to go to white on these battery canisters on him, but I do want a little more punch of brightness along these edges. So taking bright neutral gray gives me that brightness, but keeps them dull. If that makes sense. Don't always jump to your brightest color for your final highlight. Some people just get the idea that that's where you go.
Tim's wife is in a Facebook group that shows all the old stuff. Sounds like. I'm very nostalgic. Jason is less nostalgic.
Yeah, I don't care. It's funny, I really am not nostalgic. I'm not inhuman.
No.
I see things from my past or something. I'm like, oh my God, I forgot all about that. And it's fun to talk about for a minute, but I don't spend any time trying to go relive anything.
No.
Life is in front of you, not behind you.
It is. But it's still fun to see all the stuff and remember, like, oh, I remember having that. And the memories that are associated with it.
Oh, yeah. I've had people in my life, though, that would hate me because I just never take pictures.
Yeah.
I'm like, by the time I can't remember the cool parts of my life, I'm at a spot where you could show me the picture and I wouldn't know anything about it anyway. You know, the dementia would be so great that you'd just be showing me pictures and I'd be like, get this out of my face. I don't know these people. Live life in the windshield, not the rear view. Kind of poking color around. You can see not a whole lot.
Tim's tired of his windshield.
Yeah, Tim, you would be.
You do look out your windshield more than most people. Probably.
That's why he looks in his rear view when he gets home. His whole home is retro.
Yeah.
Old freaking Pez dispensers.
Oh, Phoenix Kite said, I'm the one usually honestly behind the camera. Very few times I'm in front of it. So I sent Jason a very odd thing, a picture with me and the poor empty rat getting its daily hug. Do you know what this means?
No.
I don't know what this means.
Poor empty what?
Rack? Like a program rack? That's the only thing I can think of. But
I don't understand.
I don't understand. Mustache mugs that date back to 1890 at Lumberjack Tim's house. Oh, a picture sent to you in Discord.
Oh.
He's not in Discord right now. I have a bunch of stuff from my childhood. I have my sticker albums. I used to collect stickers when I was
fun.
like 10 years old. I still have a bunch of my original Barbie dolls.
See, and I'm such a bad person because like looking like if we sat down and looked at all your old stuff, that would be a lot of fun, you know. And then I'm like, I don't. My mom made that photo album, so you can look at the photo album of all the stuff my mom put together.
Yeah.
But when I was no longer living with my mother, it goes dark.
Yeah. Yeah.
If it's not a picture of me in a band
Yeah.
that I was in that somebody else took of me on stage, or a picture of somebody took me on a motorcycle someplace,
Yeah.
or in a PR thing for a company I was with, there's just no record.
Well, but pictures were also so different because you actually had to use film and go get it developed, and it wasn't the instantaneous thing that it is now. So
Well, it's funny
a big
because like in the camera world, I had one of those big square like Sony things that took a floppy disk.
Yeah.
You remember that? You said
My
somebody
uncle had one. Yeah.
Yeah. Your uncle had one. And so I had one of those. So I was there with that technology thinking digital photos. I'll start taking photos. And I took an absolute crap ton, like absolute tsunami of photos with that thing.
Yeah.
But where are they? Because what's happened is storage has changed. There was no way to have mobile storage.
Right.
So it's all on a hard drive that died on a computer.
Yeah.
So all those digital photographs became meaningless because you didn't back them up to 4 other hard drives. And actually, I did back them up to one hard drive because, again, I spent way too much money to have an external hard drive that was a parallel port hard drive or something like that, like the old printers connected to. It had this big, chunky hard drive that had a lot of photos on it, but even then, you couldn't put too many on it.
Right.
Because I couldn't afford, like, now, everything's gigabytes, you know?
Yeah.
Terabytes. And so all that's just dead. It all just died along the way. How do you make mugs out of mustaches? Exactly. Exactly. I don't want to have anything to do with any of that. The cost of a full stereo audio VCR was insane.
We had a Betamax VCR.
Mustache mugs are just fancy sippy cups. I altered T. Schmidt's words just a little bit to elbow Tim. It's one of the greatest things you have the freedom to do as a streamer is misread people's quotes so that, you know, if you're not watching chat as a fellow chatter, I can completely inflame chat.
Context is whatever we make it to be.
Ginger Beef, you said you find the original color after an oil wash is usually intense enough for high contrast. What was that in response to? Because yes, you can also, if you're talking about like how I'm doing the canister here, I don't do any washes, so I just build up from darkness, and then I have to continually balance my brightness. If you do a filter over an entire model or part of a model with like a subtractive filter, like a oil wash especially, where you can clean your edges back to the way they were, you can get good contrast that way for sure. People sometimes go to their brightest color. Oh, okay, yeah. Yep. Yeah, it's kind of like I don't want to say a natural response, but I think it is, in that people will gravitate towards, the brightest color they have in a certain range of colors, or white, unfortunately, to go to their highlights, not realizing that if you punch something to white before the very end of the model, white is a color you use early as a mixer and a way to tint other colors, and then you use it late in a model to be the final punch of light in certain areas for reflective spots and things like that. Very rarely a color I use in the middle of painting a model, other than mixing, like I said. And that goes for other colors that are almost as bright as white, too. You find me using them towards the very end, or in stages where, where if we're doing a whole model that's non-metallic, right, and we've got a tremendous amount of shiny gold or something like that, then we'll punch brighter colors on it earlier. But like the gold here doesn't even have the final bright coloring on it, because I'm afraid to go to my super bright colors until I have more of the details dialed in, other textures and other colors and things like that figured out, so that we can go through and balance the model at the end. So that's when the brightest colors come in, is after all the other work. Right?
Is that metallic paint?
No.
That's crazy.
Was that metallic? What?
Was that
on the Death Knight?
Knight?
No, this is all non-metallic.
That's crazy.
Yeah, that's
so
all
shiny.
All non-metallic. Same with Dante. Dante has a lot more of the brighter colors applied because he's nearly done. So I'm going at the end and scoop in the brightness to make it all work.
You're kind of a good painter.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I do it a lot.
Yeah.
Although not as much lately.
Yeah, only on stream lately.
Yeah, I have not taken any time to paint on weekends and stuff. I've been staying away from the office on purpose. Not staying away from painting, but just staying away from coming into the office. Because even when I come to paint, I'll stand here for an hour or two and paint, listen to my book, but then I'll shut it down and go sit in front of the computer, and then I'll blow 2 hours doing email and stuff in there and not do what I meant to come here for. But I need to come back and just paint some stuff. Ginger says, when I first started, I made the mistake of thinking white would bring back a color already desaturated with black. It just desaturates it more in the opposite direction, right? Yeah. You find as you mix colors that you mix with bases and other tints that, contain warmth, yellows instead of white for warmer colors, things like that. And you get much better results. And then white, you just finalize it with. Don't feel stupid, man.
I was just going to say,
that's logical.
You just didn't know.
That's logical.
Yeah,
that's exactly what you would think it should work like. It's just unfortunately it doesn't work like that.
When you don't know something, sometimes you just play around and see what works. Figure it out.
I want to use Dark Sea Ben.
Ooh. A new one.
Dark Sea Ben. Oh, it's quitting time.
Oh, it is.
I always forget. Oh, such a good color. Dark Sea Ben is like the slightly more green Payne's Gray.
Ooh, yeah. That's
it with Payne's Gray gives you limitless potential with how you do your blackish blues, Such a good color. Great shader. I, however, am going to use it to base solar panels. It's lovely.
Dragoon said, this is the stuff I don't get, the mixing of colors. I can use something like the Citadel app to see what colors to use and can put those to models well enough to win painting competitions, but don't ask me to mix colors or determine what color to highlight or build with.
And that's perfectly fine. Remember, you know, a lot of people don't come at miniature wargaming and painting miniatures from a, you know, what I would call a more traditional art background. And color theory and all that can take a hike if you're getting good results from grabbing bottles. I'm right there with you on that one. Now, as you get to where you want your models to be more pronounced in the way their color is presented, more nuance to your blends, then mixing becomes something you do instinctually without really having to know what's going on, because you'll just grab a color, you know, let's say you're using a base and a shade and a highlight in some sort of triad from a company. Such a good color, holy hell. That's fine, right? You'll do that, and then somewhere along the line you'll mix the base with the shade. You know, because you need a color just kind of in between for this particular shadow or highlight area where you're moving across the top of a muscle or something. A lot of people wind up there through doing skin tones initially. But everybody mixes colors somewhere along the line.
PCG Scorpion asks if we're ever going to do a color shifting line.
Probably not. I don't like to say never to many things, but color shift paints are one of the things that I just don't... I have to be able to use it, and I would never use it.
Ginger Beef has been shopping online. Would you say that the Pro Acryl wash is comparable to Citadel Contrast?
The Pro Acryl washes are like the old shade line, like the old Nuln, Agrax, and Reichland, that they changed to be like contrast medium. So no, they're not like contrast paints. They're actually really good deep filters, meaning that they have a very good ability to, like, here's the brown done over the top of, and I think we put some flesh. Yeah, you can see some flesh wash on there too. Took a white model and just put it on there to show people how it works. It's a really good even staining and shading for your model, right? It's not intended to be so intense that it by itself is a colorant, although it could be if you didn't thin it any at all. It'll be pretty intense color, but it's still going to be a nice gradient across the top surfaces and not stain too badly. I had to put a tremendous amount on here to get it to even stain in the recesses, right? So it just is intended to give you a really good, even flow of paint so that you can use it as that filter over the top of your other colors. I did it over white here because we get that question a lot. How does it differ from something like a contrast paint? This will show you. It will let more of your base color show through. You can do another layer over the top and continue building it up, but it's meant to do a very gradual staining of the colors underneath it to give that shade. Like, this is the flesh wash that would go over top of skin. This is brown for more of a dirty base, and then we have black. And then the glaze wash medium, and the glaze wash medium is what I made the wash that we did the burnt orange for the rust on his chains and blades, right? So you can turn any paint that you own into a wash with the glaze medium. Yeah, it was really made to be, because again, and it sounds kind of funky. I only like to produce and sell the things we will use on a daily basis, and all the people here that paint differently. But for me, it really means like myself and Jordan when he's here. We typically want to make products that we feel excited about because we love sitting around and talking painting with you guys, and I want to grab products that get me jazzed about painting. So I don't paint with a lot of washes. I would use Nuln oil every now and then over metallics and things like that, but I don't paint with as many metallics, so it just became something that sat and dried out on the shelf. But now the washes we use a lot because you can mix them in with your normal colors. They act like a paint, just a very fluid paint. So they don't have a different like chemical property to them that makes them hard to mix with others. So if you make a wash that you really love, you can add a little bit of white to it to brighten it up to use it as a highlight. So if I were to take this guy and do a wash on his flesh, right, which we did a wash that we created out of Payne's Gray. I painted him up with a bunch of grays, and then we did a Payne's Gray, which is like a very deep blue, and we did a wash over the top, so you'll see a little bit of blue in the crevices. We made that out of the glazed wash medium. Oh yeah, you can see it right there in the cracks of the skin. Right, but I'm comfortable putting it over a piece that I'm painting like this because it won't do that staining, right? And it doesn't over accentuate anything. Now I ran it really thin, right? But I got just a slight nature of bluish back into the skin that way because we do the dark flesh tone underneath, right? So it makes me now use our washes and get excited about painting with them because they act more like just a more fluid paint. But you can't just thin a paint down with water and get it to do that because the pigment separates and it doesn't go where you want it to go and it doesn't look good. And so you need something that keeps the pigment where you want it but makes it flow like it's just very, very thin. So it worked great. USPS came back, Neutro. Okay, thank you. He was just taunting you. He was like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to drive around the block and eat my lunch, make this guy have a heart attack.
Dragon, I'm not familiar with the Citadel app, but if you use Paint Rack, I know that a lot of people use that, and there's multiple lines of paint on there that you can compare, I think.
And Dragoon, we do a lot of content-oriented stuff, not an app, but we do a lot of content-oriented stuff that you'll start seeing more and more of, where Jordan and Gabe are making shorts and videos for the YouTube channel that will show you specific ways. We have a whole series coming out called Tint, Tone, and Shade that Jordan walks you through. Like, I think his first one talks about reds. And so he's going to show you different ways to paint red with a cool shadow, keeping warm shadows with just a general black and white tint and shade to it. So it'll be more color focused than what we normally do. That'll show you our particular colors in their base form, like how to paint with jade. If you want something that's jade, because a lot of people just think, you know what, I want a jade cloak because I love jade. Well, how do you do that? How do you get the right shadow color? How do you build up to a nice highlight? What colors work well? So we have a series coming out that's going to start dealing with a lot of those principal base colors, what I would call base colors in our line. Red, orange, yellow, black, green, blue, jade, those that you would then say, yeah, I want to paint my Space Marine yellow. How do I do that? And we'll show you how to go through the selection process of making the choices for your shadow color and things like that. Because there's a lot more to it than just a triad of colors, right? You'll see, well, just like this guy, I could have used, he's got kind of an elephant gray hide. I could have used just a darker gray for the shadow, but I chose instead to use dark flesh, right? And dark flesh is an odd choice maybe, but what it does is it gives my shadows life, right? So if you think in terms of triads of colors, it makes it very simple. The GW way, we'll call it, right? Where you go, here's a dark blue, a mid-tone blue, and a bright blue, paint your ultramarines, done deal. That's very simple, and it gets the job done. But what it doesn't do is get you to that point where when you're looking at that famous artist or person that you look up to on the internet, it doesn't get your models looking like that. Because what happens is you'll find nuances to color that are different, that take it away from just, dark gray, mid-gray, light gray. Here, right, the dark flesh makes it look like he would actually bleed blood if you cut him, right, as opposed to a dark gray that makes it look like he's wearing a bodysuit, right? You can see kind of the red across the brow that gets left, things like that, where you have a little bit more ability to play with warmth and coolness in your colors, no matter what the base color is, so that you start expanding your ability to paint, and your models grow into a realm of being more exciting. And so that is where we're going to focus with color, because it's very simple to darken a color, brighten a color, and find that triad. We're going to start showing you how to then also move it into warm and cool tones, depending on what you're trying to do. So don't go anywhere. That stuff's coming up. He actually has like 3 of them filmed, I think. They're just waiting to edit those.
Coming soon, then.
Coming real soon. So yeah, Dragoon, not Dragoon. Vince also has deep dives into almost every color in his hobby chief. Yeah, Maverick. Vince does a great job of going through and talking about working with particular colors. All right, gang. That's it. We're done. We reached the end. I've been picking away at this guy. You know what? What I'm doing is doing all of the gribblies on his back and stuff. Now I have to really punch in and do the skin. So that's our next step. Hopefully you've been enjoying as I plug slowly away at our wonderful rhino boy. You can just go to find somebody to raid out of that. But make sure to follow the links that Jen's thrown up. I can't see, chat. Did you already put them up there?
Sorry, I did put them up.
Make sure to follow the links that Jen threw up in there. The store where you can find all of the wonderful Pro Acryl and hobby products that we make here at Monument Hobbies. Give us a shot next time you want to try some new paints, maybe some new brushes. Maybe we'll have brushes for you to try again soon. Our brushes sell out quicker than you can imagine. And we stream 5 days a week here, too. So remember, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, like today, we do 12 noon to 2 p.m. Pacific time here in the U.S. And then Tuesdays and Thursdays, we start at that later 2 p.m. time and go till 5. So it gives you 5 chances to catch up with us during the week. We do exactly what you've seen here every day of the week. So we paint stuff, we talk about painting stuff, we tell fart jokes, we make fun of chat. It's a lot of fun. You can catch on the Discord where it takes everything except for the live painting portion and throws it into the Discord realm so you can continue talking with the wonderful people from chat. We got, I think, over 3,000 artists in Discord now. It's crazy. It keeps growing. And great place for inspiration, asking questions. If you've got questions you want to ask Jordan or myself or the other community members, it's a really helpful community of people that will help get you down the road of figuring out what's wrong with something you're trying to replicate on a model or just get you started. You know, hey, I want to paint yellow. How do I paint yellow? You can get a lot of good information on the Discord. And then, of course, the FLGS link where you can find the local stores close to you that might sell our stuff. And testimonial commercials. Those are awesome. But thanks so much for hanging out with us. Stick around for the raid. We're going to find somebody to raid. Who are you going to raid?
Studio J7.
Studio J7. We're going to raid Studio, Mr. Studio. So show some love over there when we drop, and we will look forward to seeing you back here at 2 p.m. for Tuesday. Have a wonderful evening, gang. We'll catch you on the flip side.